It's powerful. There's an energy here.
Whichever stereotype you're going to try to put on me isn't going to fit. That's for sure.
Because there's no stopping me.
Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you, and visit Biktarvy.com to view the important facts, including important warnings.
Hello there, welcome to a special Plus Talk on Plus Life. We're all about turning positive into a plus. World AIDS Day is upon us, and we are here at the National AIDS Memorial. Joining me, CEO John Cunningham. Good to see you. Thank you for having us in this really special place.
Great to have you back.
Where are we? What is this place, John?
So we're sitting in our nation's only federally designated memorial to AIDS. It has been here for 33 years. It was founded and created by a small group of individuals in San Francisco during the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, when the dark cloud hung over this community. There's a power of being in nature. Nature has such a healing energy and spirit to it that a number of individuals wanted to find a park setting. I think it speaks to what was going on in this community, in this city, much like what was happening in other major cities across the country, that the city leaders gave 10 acres of the crown jewel of Golden Gate Park to a yet-to-be-formed organization. Where we sit right now, 33 years ago, was a derelict, abandoned, and forgotten site. Much like those young men, boys, that were in the early days being lost at an alarming rate. Over the last 33 years, well over 500,000 volunteer hours have been dedicated to transforming this. And in 1996, through an act of Congress, signed into law by President Clinton, written by Speaker Emerita Pelosi, this is our national memorial. It's powerful. There's an energy here. There's a spirit here. This is the only space in San Francisco on public land where it's legal to deposit urns or spread ashes, final resting place for hundreds of people. This space gives individuals the opportunity in this healing garden to reflect and to remember, but also in that process to magnify a hope for the future, which is much like it was in the early days when it was first created and first founded. For me personally, as a man that has been living for 27 years with HIV, AIDS, it also speaks to the best of humanity and the best of community. Founded and created in the darkest days at a time where stigma ruled, where discrimination and othering, and where a government decided to neglect and look the other way, a community rose up. And that's I believe, the example of what is here and what has been created.
What do you hope that people experience when they walk through this beautiful space?
Well, I first hope that, especially with younger people, that they have the opportunity to be connected to the over 40 years of this AIDS, of this crisis. Because in so many ways, I believe it's still here with us, but forgotten by many. But I hope also that they realize and look and understand the power of what individuals can do when joining together to bring about change in community and in society.
I know that this place is constantly evolving. What's new?
Well, as you refer to this place, so we are in the 10-acre memorial. We just completed a $250,000 infrastructural improvement of putting in new trails and new road surfaces. As an organization, the National AIDS Memorial has two pillar cornerstone programs, one being this memorial and the other being the iconic AIDS Memorial quilt, which we assumed the stewardship for in 2019.
Tell me about the dandelions.
So the dandelion community represents, as is referred to, those that have lifelong lived with the virus. They were perinatally infected and born with the virus. The dandelion, as an example, is many of those lost their mother. And so out of that tragedy is born a flower, much like a dandelion weed that a flower rises from. So, this year on World AIDS Day, we're so honored that we will be spotlighting Haidia Broadbent, who is referred to as a dandelion, who's been an inspiration to so many. As they say, she walked so others could run. On World AIDS Day, her father, Lauren Broadbent, will be with us, and he will be posthumously accepting the award on her behalf of the National Leadership Recognition Award. And as oftentimes said, she walked so others could run. She broke the mold in many ways, a powerful individual, and we lost her last year. So the dandelion community will be honored and will be spotlighted because far too often they are forgotten or not known.
What's it like when you hear people coming, whether it's through this space or witnessing the quilt for the first time, who perhaps think that, you know, they've just maybe stumbled in here. HIV hasn't really affected them. It's not part of their world. And then they realize that they're either standing here and experiencing this, or they're seeing the quilt and seeing what it means. What's it like when you hear those people's reactions?
You know, it shows and is an example that the work that we've all done over the 30 or 40 years in this crisis, sacrificing in many cases so much of our own time and our own lives for others in a selfless service, so that others can use that example of what it means to be a member of society and what it means to ensure that others that may not have a voice or that are less fortunate are cared for and looked after.
How far have we come in this journey of HIV and AIDS over 43 years?
You know, it's interesting. It's a very interesting question because you can look at it through two lenses. One is the scientific lens,
Yep.
and the other one is the social lens, right? Scientifically, you and I sit here and have been given the blessing through scientific advancements of a full life. That doesn't come without its challenges, both emotional and psychosocial and the like. So we've had great advances. We've had great advances in the sense of prevention with PrEP, with long-term injectables. However, on the social side, I wonder. I wonder where we really are, and have we continued to advance forward, or have we advanced and are we retreating? And there is a great line that Cleve has used: if you take it for granted, they'll take it away. And I believe we're at that crossroads at times. We need to redouble our efforts on stigma and discrimination and othering and marginalization, because when you look at this, when you look at the stigma, you know, stigma as it applied to the epidemic 35 years ago is different than it is today.
Why does World AIDS Day still matter?
Well, World AIDS Day still matters because it's critical that we continue to put the spotlight on it. This organization has long stood as an organization to spotlight the needs of this crisis, so that those that are doing direct services, whether it be housing or research or medical advancements or food or the like, can do that without having to invest in trying to keep it in the forefront. The other side of it is, it's a day of reflection and remembrance. 750,000 Americans and so many more around the world have been lost. And we must not ever forget that their lives were cut short in many cases because of neglect, because of a government that chose not to respond, because of stigma in a community. And we must not only redouble our efforts to ensure that that doesn't happen again, but that we honor their lives, and that's the work we do together.
I know that the memorial has some special programming around World AIDS Day and the night before, Light in the Grove. Tell us about the special programming, Light in the Grove and World AIDS Day.
So Light in the Grove was created 14 years ago on the eve of World AIDS Day as a way to spotlight and to bring people together in a little bit of a different way than somewhat the solemn remembrance of World AIDS Day. And it is indeed one of the most iconic events in San Francisco. You go through this Redwood Grove where we sit today with performance artists and light shows and dancers and candles, and you end up going into this amazing tent on the meadow, and it is all wrapped in love.
This is honestly one of the most beautiful events in San Francisco. The minute you arrive at the Grove and you see the lit walkway, and people are very dressed up for this event, is beautiful. And the decorations are like to the nth degree. It's just lovely.
When we first did Light in the Grove, we didn't really necessarily know exactly the power of what we were creating. Many of us back who've been doing this work for 30 plus years had to step away. The trauma that we all faced and walked through over these years is profound. And so what we found at Light in the Grove specifically is individuals coming back together and actually seeing people and saying, I haven't seen you in decades because I needed to walk away from you because just your face was painful because we were caring for people together that didn't survive. And that is why it has been bestowed the #1 fundraiser in San Francisco 5 times, because it's powerful. It's a spiritual event.
Globally, there's an estimated 38 million of us living with HIV. What's your hope for the future of the HIV/AIDS response?
Well, of course, the hope is that we bring an end to it. But we've been having that hope for a very long time. We must continue that work as organizations and communities. But I think that as we look to the future, we've got to ensure that those communities, those populations that are at highest risk and yet are also the most challenging to reach, that we invest the resources to get to those individuals, whether they be those that inject drugs, whether they be the transgender community, communities of color, that we leverage so that those states in the South specifically that have decided to not expand Medicaid so that there's not access to health care, that they do. Yeah. That we just redouble our efforts and we move ourselves to getting to zero.
Talk to me about the mission of the National AIDS Memorial.
I lived in the, I lived in the heart of the Castro during the darkest days of the epidemic. I've lived in California and in the Bay Area specifically. It came through I believe my family roots. And it is a matter of passing again that torch along. The program we have, the Pedro Zamora Young Leader Scholarship Program. Yes, it supports the work of individuals that are doing work in health and HIV, but it actually goes beyond that. It goes on to the work that Pedro would be doing today, whether that be immigrant rights, whether that be reproductive rights or the like, because it is the young people of today that are our future and our hope for tomorrow. Even though we struggle today with much political strife in our nation, seeing these young people do this work gives me encouragement to the future. So if we do anything as an organization, is that we are able to not only support them financially as they continue their academic pursuits, but as we've learned most importantly, that we let them know we see you and we honor you.
John Cunningham, thanks for having us down here.
Thank
it's
you.
It's a special place, always special. Thank you very much.
Always great to have you here.
That is going to do it for this special Plus Talk on Plus Life. If you want more information about the memorial, about the quilt, about World AIDS Day, about Light in the Grove, you can go to our website, pluslifemedia.com. And remember, you can like, follow, and share across our social platforms. We are at Plus Life Media. Until next time, be nice to one another, please. Bye-bye.